This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non-toxic, medical-grade ingredients. Active Skin Repair is something that is a staple now in our family health cabinet. My son is into mountain biking now. He's into ninja courses, and so he's getting a lot of scrapes and like burns when he like slides down the spider wall. So anytime that happens, I just go to the cabinet, we take out the Active Skin Repair, spray it on, and he's feeling pretty good. That's because Active Skin Repair uses a molecule called hypochlorous acid. When applied to the skin, the molecule works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing. It's pretty cool. So visit www.activeskinrepair.com to learn more about Active Skin Repair and to get 20% off your order, use code NOGUILT. That's activeskinrepair.com, and to get 20% off your order, use code NOGUILT.
I think how women get lost in motherhood a lot of times is that motherhood in the beginning forces you to put your needs on the back burner because you kind of got to be there and keep a human alive. And so it's necessary. But we get locked in where our needs remain on the back burner for a really long period of time.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crode, here with the lovely Brie Tucker.
Well, hello, everybody. How are you?
Today, we're talking about relationships with your partner, relationships with your kids, and the relationship with yourself. And the cool thing is that our guest has a whole model on it that you could use to like dissect your own relationship, which I always find fun.
I loved it. And honestly, like I ran out of room on my paper for notes because I was jotting like, oh, great quote here. Oh, very quotable there. Oh, this would be a great intro. Like there's so much info in this episode. It was phenomenal. I cannot wait to get to meet Morgan again. She's got her next book coming up and we've got some other stuff we're chatting with her about. So
yes. Well, the whole thing is I come into this interview, I feel like as a book fan. Like I do that with some people where I come in and I'm like, oh, I love your book. And let me quote it. I put some quotes right here and I'm like scrolling through my phone notes app. And I did that with her.
That's how people can tell that you really, really loved the book. So
I love the book. And it's funny, like with all my notes, I'm going to share with you guys. If you have trouble remembering what you read, I'm going to share in the outro how I remember what I read from the books, all the books I read. So stay tuned for that in the outro. But right now, let me introduce you to Morgan Cutlip, Ph.D. She holds a Ph.D. in psychology and is the author of the new book. Well, in September released book, Love Your Kids Without Losing Yourself, 5 Steps to Banish Guilt and Beat Burnout When You Already Have Too Much to Do. She's also a wife and mom of 2 kids and helps moms master their relationship with themselves and their partner. And we hope you enjoy our interview with Morgan. You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. So Morgan, I was reading your book and I was shocked to discover that you actually started your parenthood journey where your husband was like all the way across the country. Like tell us about that story and how that occurred.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so, well, it's wild now looking back. So our kids are Effie, who the story is about, is now 11, which is wild. So we're like in the throes of teenagerhood, and our son Roy is 8. So I became a mom. I was actually pregnant right outside of DC, and my husband had a job where he could kind of work wherever. And so he was like, let's move to be closer to family. And I was telling the both of you that I'm from Ohio originally. And I don't know if you know this, but when you're from Ohio and you retire, you move to Florida. So my parents,
Michigan as well.
Yeah. It's all that part of the country. You retire in Florida.
Yes, that's where everybody goes to vacation and retire. It's a twofer. Yeah.
It's a thing. It's a thing. And my dad was like sort of edging toward retirement, but he bought a house there and he's like, oh, we'll just move there. So we're like, oh, wait, what? Because all our family was back in Ohio. So we were living outside of DC. I was finishing up internship and we decided we're going to move to Florida to be close to my family. I worked with my dad at the time. We wanted support. I went into motherhood with like just completely naive, but I at least knew I wanted people around me that could be part of my village. And so we renovated a house literally down to one wall, built it up. We moved into the house when I was 9 and some change months
brave.
pregnant, like about to pop.
Brave or
Yes,
crazy?
like I went through like
not
our
sure which.
birthing. I'm just like, I just didn't know what I was doing. I just didn't know. I was like, whatever, I'll be fine. And, I went through the birthing classes, like accelerated it in a weekend. And so we finally move into the house. I'm unpacking. The room is just put together. I end up having Effie is born. And 2 months later, my husband gets a call that he was offered a job, which is kind of like you take the job or we're done offering you jobs kind of thing. So it was like a promotion / ultimatum in Southern California. And I was like, we just had a baby. I'm like freshly postpartum. I feel like my world has literally been flipped upside down. And he's like, well, I got to take it. And I'm like, well, I'm not coming right now because there's no way I'm going to leave my like safety net and go live in some random apartment, who knows where in Southern California, while we're trying to find a house and stuff. So from 2 months to 10 months, he was in California and I was in Florida. And I'd go out there some weekends and he'd come home some weekends. But it changed my entry into motherhood in a pretty dramatic way because we both didn't know what we were doing. He was not good at jumping in and taking initiative. It felt like our daughter was like kind of a scary baby.
I love how you say that so cautiously now. She was kind of a scary baby. I'll be honest.
She scared me.
She's scared.
I mean, she's like the best. I mean, she's awesome, but like she scared me. She just was like opinionated immediately. She was kind of colicky. She would just never slept. She never napped well. And so by the time, it's sort of like you kind of go into this like survival mode where I feel like I had reached the depths of the internet, like about sleep and trying to figure things out. And then I found my way. And then when Chad and I kind of reunited in California, he was so uninvolved at that point. And I was such a gatekeeper because I'm like, don't mess with our scary baby.
System.
Like, I know what's going on.
You're like, I have the baby figured out.
You're gonna mess it
You
up.
stay over there. You stay over there. Oh my gosh, when you have a scary
Exactly.
baby like that, it is hard. Like my son
really
was
hard.
also a scary baby. He was a scary baby where like if I left him with my parents or with my in-laws, he would cry the entire time I was gone. And when you have a baby like that, you're almost like afraid also to leave them because you feel like you're really hurting the people you leave them with as well. It's the hardest thing as
it's
a mom.
not worth the stress of it.
No.
Yeah, I remember my mom would be like, we lived on a little island in Florida and there was like, everything was right there. And there was this like a nail salon. And she'd be like, go get your nails done. I'll watch the baby. And I actually don't like getting my nails done. I find it like I get really anxious being there. I'm like, this is a waste of my time. But I cannot tell you, like, I remember sitting in the chair and getting a text within like just long enough to put the polish on so it's wet and being like, you got to get home
Oh my God.
right now. She's freaking out. It was just like, it just wasn't worth leaving or doing anything at that point. It was just, it was way less stress to just suck it up and be there.
Rough,
so
man.
Yeah.
that was my entry into motherhood. I was like,
That was
what
your
is
entry?
this?
Okay, so wait. So when you got pregnant with your second, were you like, oh God, not again?
Well, it's funny because I did births with a midwife. And so with Effie, she was 10 days early. And then Roy was 10 days late. And they ended up being like almost the identical weight. So I think they just had to like cook to their finishing point. But I do think there was this part of me that was like emotionally not ready, where I was like holding on and I was not ready to have him because I was like, I cannot do what happened last time. And I think our body really stores that sort of emotional experience. And so I had a complication with my first birth. My midwife's like, I think it's that complication. I'm like, I think it's my husband. Like, I don't think it's not. Like, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried that like it's gonna suck, kind of like it did the first time around. And after him and I had a heart to heart, I mean, I think my water broke like 2 days
It was
later.
and what was
it was like emotionally
what was the
holding
heart
on
to heart?
for sure.
Was it like admitting that you're scared of everything happening again, or?
Yeah, it was kind of like I was like I wasn't happy with how motherhood began for me. I didn't like how, I felt alone. And I know it's a big part circumstantial. Like I have a really great husband, but it's, also like get in there, dude. Like get in there. we're going to have two and she's a handful and I can't do this alone anymore. And so it was pretty much around that stuff.
And it's also, you had some other stress going on in your life too, because you mentioned 4 home renovations in 4 years or something like that. Yeah. Like down to the wall, same renovation
You really
kind of
missed
thing.
your mark on not being on Fear Factor. That's all I got to say. I think you would have crushed it.
No, I'm not. I'm not gutsy with with what I eat and things like that. So I am like meat and potatoes. Yeah. Home renovations. My husband and I kind of thrive. We thrive with a project. We're really good work. It's like the Midwest in us. Like we are workers or like manual laborers. So the home renovations are, we've gotten to a point where we're not doing the work ourselves anymore, which is really awesome. It's much nicer. But yeah, we actually did really well during those times of our relationship. And we've done, so one renovation was with one child and then part of my pregnancy. And then the last renovation, they were both toddlers. So we did it. And my husband was traveling and I like managed a lot of the work and yeah, we got it done.
Well, you have
I don't know.
Yeah, you've had the life experience for dealing with relationships. And I know you also have the academic experience. And like your family situation is so interesting to me, Morgan, because you actually teach a model that your dad developed. And this story of you going to the library and helping him find the research papers to prove his theory was just like, oh my gosh, this has been in your life forever. So tell us a little bit about the relationship attachment model and how it started with your dad.
Yeah, so my dad went back to school when I was probably like around 4 or 5. And it's funny because it took him a long time to finish because I think he graduated when I was in high school. But he went back to school he got a couple masters and a doctorate in psychology. We actually ended up, I don't think they knew this I don't know if they did when they accepted me, but I went to the exact same program that he went to and we ended up having one teacher in common, which is really weird.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like attended a class when I was about 6 and she taught it and then I had her as professor and she was teaching the same stuff, which is crazy. But I was like, I remember what you were drawing on the board. But yeah, he went back to school, but he had already had a lot of experience. He actually was way back when he was a pastor in a church. He did a lot of counseling when he was there, as you end up doing. And then he wanted the degrees and he wanted to have his own practice. And so he went back to school and he taught for a while. And also a lot of his practice was with couples and couples who are like going through a really difficult time in their relationship. And he started just like, he's like the nutty professor is how I describe my dad. Like he's just a really good thinker. And so he started seeing these patterns in people's relationships and how they develop. And something that's not talked about very much in the relationship education space is how you grow a developing relationship. So the pace of a relationship is where he kind of like focused his career. But he developed this model of attachment, the relationship attachment model. My book is around it. And it's basically a visual of a relationship. You know, we talk about in the relationship space a lot of concepts that's like we intuitively know, but we actually can't define. So you're like, oh, what's love? Oh, I know what love is, but what is it? You know, what's a relationship? What is it made of? What does it look like? How do you know, we don't really have definition for these abstract things. And that's what this model does. It gives a visual definition of a relationship and 5 bonds or like attaching kind of dynamics that occur in every single relationship. And so,
and I thought that this visual was so interesting and so easy to define. I actually talked about it this morning in our in our membership community with our people. And I can't wait to get into it. We're going to go through those 5 bonds right after this. So Morgan, you're talking about this relationship attachment model. And there are here at No Guilt Mom and in our balance program, I am always talking about the importance of healthy habits. That is what gives you the energy to actually face all the stress you have as a mom. And one thing that I'm obsessed about is drinking enough water. Staying hydrated is so important. And that's why you've got to check out AquaTrue because its proprietary purification technology removes so many harmful contaminants, including PFAs, which are those forever chemicals, which can potentially lead to adverse health effects like cancer or liver toxicity. And the cool thing is the filters are long lasting. They last from 6 months to 2 years. AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and even makes a great gift. Today, our listeners receive 20% off any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com. That's AQUATRU.com and enter code NGM at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use promo code NGM. Back to school season is officially here. And if you're struggling like I am, trying to get everything done, I have one thing that you can cross off your list, and that is grocery shopping and meal planning. Because HelloFresh can provide each of those for you, and they handle most of the prep too. Their meals are absolutely delicious. And if you have kids complaining about what you're cooking for dinner, you can solve that family dinner dilemma because HelloFresh has a line of kid-friendly family options. We had this delicious corn quesadilla that my kids absolutely love.
And Green Chef and Every Plate, they are now owned by HelloFresh. Now, with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there is something for everyone.
I have to mention, for a limited time, kids eat free. They eat free. So go to HelloFresh.com/NGM Kids to unlock this exclusive offer. One free kids meal per box for 2 months while your subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/NGM Kids.
HelloFresh, it's America's #1 meal kit.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is,
"Thank you for calling. Please listen to your list of 46 possible service options."
which is why when you choose USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable. 24/7 online service for claims, access to roadside assistance, and more, all at the touch of a button. Start getting the service you deserve. Get a quote today. Ability to receive a quote depends on membership eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
5 components to it. What are those 5 components and how do they define a relationship?
So there are know, trust, rely, commit, and touch. And so this model is actually the basis for all of our courses. We have several courses because it applies to every single relationship we have in life. So the easiest one to apply it to is actually a relationship with a partner. So if you think about if you're in a relationship and just kind of imagine, so like paint the picture for you, imagine an equalizer on a stereo where all the levels kind of move up and down, but they're 5 sort of next to each other. And know is how well you know each other, how deeply you know each other. You know, we know the easiest way to describe this is after kids, when you're like 2 ships passing in the night, you feel it like, right. My husband just got home from a trip last week and then he left today. And I don't even feel like I spoke to him. Like we're very much, it's just go, 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 very much out of the know. The next one is trust. Trust is basically our opinion or our belief in someone. That one actually can unpack and becomes really powerful to understand in our relationships. But it's your opinion of somebody. A lot of times we fill in the gaps. It's based on a little bit of reality, like the facts that we know about somebody, but it's based more on our opinion about what we know. So we actually construct a lot of our trust in somebody. Rely is how you meet each other's needs, how you express those needs, show up for each other. Commit is like the holding force in a relationship. Persevering, it's how you keep promises in a relationship or to yourself, as I talk about in my book. And then touch is like the affection and intimacy, and that can be through words or through physical touch. And so the idea is that each of these are bonding in and of separately, but also when you arrange these levels in different configurations, it sort of creates a picture of what's going on in the relationship, where vulnerabilities exist, and then you can be targeted in how you manage that relationship. And so that's a big kind of like horn we've been tooting or blowing, I don't know how to say it, but like a long time, which is that people can have really great relationship skills, but if you don't manage your relationship well and both partners, then that's when relationships start to fall
I can see
apart.
that.
Yeah, I love that visual because also in the book, you compare it to your relationship with your child and most importantly, your relationship with yourself. And I think that that is one of the most like impactful parts of your book because so often like we don't know ourselves and what triggers us. We have all of these opinions about what we do, what we should do, what we shouldn't do as moms that really makes that level go down. So I wanted to go a little like deeper into the no category, specifically with like your relationship with your kids and the story of your husband giving Roy a bath and Effie in the shower.
I can tell this is going to be a good one already. Let me get my popcorn.
My kids love this story. It's pretty fast story, but it was just, I think I was cooking dinner. I think is what happened is I was cooking dinner upstairs and I asked my husband to give our son a bath. He was probably like, I don't know, 3. Effie's probably 5 in the shower. So they're all in the same bathroom. And I just hear him screaming, like crazy screaming. And he to this day, he still has a crazy scream, but screaming. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where's Chad? He's probably in the bathroom. Is he in the bathroom while he's giving Roy a bath? Or like, what's going on? Did he cut himself? Was my razor in there? Like, I'm going through all these worst case scenarios. So I come running down the stairs, running into the bathroom. And he's like, my butt feels spicy.
I'm like, never good. That is never a good statement to hear.
So we use that Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap. Do you know what I'm talking about? We do not use that on the kids, especially when they were really little. And Chad apparently didn't know that. And so he bathed Roy's butt in peppermint soap and it felt spicy. And it's funny because Effie is like, she's so funny. She like opens the shower door and she's like, Dad used the peppermint soap
my
on
gosh.
his butt. Like she was like so annoyed that Chad didn't know. And I'm like, how do you know to be annoyed already?
And how old was she again?
She was probably 5. I'm trying to think. I'm really bad. Like I don't use the mental energy to do math. I think she's probably 5 or 6.
Let's just say, thank God she didn't use it on her eyes or
know.
any other body parts. Oh my Lord.
She knows.
Well, she knows. She knows. Dad did not.
Dad did not. Yeah. And it's a silly story, but and I tell like a much deeper story actually about Roy in that chapter later on. But the idea is that like in order to love someone well, you have to know them deeply. Mm-hmm. And part of how you're in the know with people is like you're around them a lot. Like that's one way. That's why I know that they say like kids feel safest around their moms a lot of times, right? They kind of like unravel when they're around their moms or they prefer their moms. And I know that there's all sorts of reasons why. And I believe one of the reasons why is because we know them so well. Mm-hmm. We know their preferences. We know like what triggers them. We know all this stuff. And so Chad, just because he travels so much, he is more out of the know naturally than I am, even though he works to stay in the know. It just happens. And so it's just an example.
Yeah, the no thing is so interesting because I think it really illustrates how so many moms feel, well, so many women feel this animosity towards their partner a lot of the times and like feel like they don't know what to do because they actually don't know what to do. Yeah. They haven't been around. Like we have all these little things about our kids that we put into practice every single day. And it's part of our mental load. So like that no is so important, but also you go into like how we also need to know ourselves. And one of the big things I saw in your book, the quote you have is, when you care for yourself in meaningful ways, your relationships will naturally shift, even if the other person does nothing differently. And part of knowing yourself is then figuring out exactly what you need. So I want to hear your opinion and advice on that, of knowing yourself better right after this. So what are some questions that moms can ask themselves?
Earning your degree online doesn't mean you have to go about it alone. At Capella University, we're here to support you when you're ready. From enrollment counselors who get to know you and your goals, to academic coaches who can help you form a plan to stay on track. We care about your success and are dedicated to helping you pursue your goals. Going back to school is a big step, but having support at every step of your academic journey can make a big difference. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
We get it. Distractions happen. That's why we designed the fully electric, full-sized Volvo EX90 with the latest technology to keep you and those around you safe. Its 2-sensor driver understanding system is designed to prevent distractions and help you stay focused. Reserve your Volvo EX90 today. Learn more at volvocars.com/US.
This is Kristen Bell.
And Adam Brody.
And we're dating.
In our new show, Nobody Wants This.
Right.
Right. We're not really dating.
No, in real life, we're married.
Right. Married to other people, not each other.
Oh, this is complicated.
Right. It's just like our love lives and Nobody Wants This, a show about what happens when a bold and sometimes provocative podcast host finds her unlikely match in a sweet traditional rabbi.
Nobody Wants This launches September 26th, only on Netflix.
Morgan, to help them know themselves better and know what triggers them and know what they need in particular.
Oof. Okay, there's a lot, and there's a lot in my book. And like, I do want your listeners to get my book, but
Yes, definitely.
but let me just go with one question that I think can be really powerful that kind of goes into lots of the different areas in my book. And the question is, the type of mom I thought I'd be is. And I think that's a question that helps moms really start to unpack not just how they know themselves, which is an important one, but also how they unpack what they expect of themselves and a little bit of their like sort of like their mothering experience. I think that question sounds very superficial, like, okay, yeah, whatever. But if you actually look at what that question can help you discover, it's actually quite deep. We are learning how to be parents, but specifically how to be mothers from the moment that we're born, how we're cared for, our relationship with our mother, our lack of relationship with our mother. All of these things live inside of us. And a lot of it does not come out until we become a mother later on. And we're not really even that aware of it. And this stuff just comes out. It starts creating expectations we hold ourselves to. It starts creating standards we compare ourselves to, and can be a lot of times the reason why we feel like we're doing a great job or we're failing. And so this question alone can actually give you quite a bit of mileage and help you sort of discover your vision of what you thought you would look like in motherhood and what it would be like for you. And I think that's a good place to start. I'll give you one more. I'll give you one more.
You're like, I can't help it. I just have
If
to
you're trying to figure out, I know, I can't stop. I can't stop.
It's just
Okay, so if you're trying to specifically figure out what you need, I think this is an area of a lot of struggle for women, specifically because we're sort of like, it's indoctrinated kind of in us that we have to sacrifice our needs for everyone else. And I don't think that's all bad. Like a lot of people kind of hammer on that being a really, really bad thing. I don't think it's bad when we keep this in check. I think it's kind of a wonderful part of who we are as women.
It's like a caregiver role that we actually wish that other people in our lives would take on some of that load so that we didn't have to do it all.
Yeah. Or do it toward us. I mean, I think that's part of it is like,
us.
Yeah, like we pour into everybody, but it's like, hello, like who's showing up for us? And that can be really painful. But because of it, what happens, and I think how women get lost in motherhood a lot of times, is that motherhood in the beginning forces you to put your needs on the back burner because you kind of got to be there and keep a human alive. And so it's necessary, but we get locked in where our needs remain on the back burner for a really long period of time. And then we emerge to like a phase in motherhood where it's like, all right, I got a little bit more time. I got a little bit more space. And then you're like, I don't even know what I like anymore. I don't even know what I need. I've smushed them down for so long. I cannot even get in touch with them. So that's why it's important to kind of stay in the know with yourself, so that doesn't happen. But a very quick way to get to know what you need is to just think about what you complain about the most. That's like the easiest kind of like shortcut. What are you like regularly complaining about your partner and that they never spend any time with you, right? Or like, is that something you're regularly complaining about? Now unpack it. What is the need behind the complaint? If you think about, oh, I'm always running short on time, maybe what is the need behind that complaint? Is it that you need a little bit more breathing room? Is it that you need a bit more downtime? Is that you need to cut things out? Start to think through the needs behind the complaints.
That's a really great advice because like I can think of that in my own life right now. And currently I'm complaining about my son joined mountain biking team like on a whim. But the practice is like 30 minutes away from our house. It's only an hour and a half and then it's 30 minutes back. And I'm like, this is like all of my time right here. This is like a huge time commitment. And when I started thinking about that, it's like, what though as a mom can I do when I definitely like this is a kid who I have had a hard time getting him interested in a sport. Like, and finally he shows something and I'm like, okay, we got to make this happen. But it's also this feeling of resentment because it's like my husband can't because he doesn't get out of work till 6 and that's when practice starts. So he can't help with it. And we can ask in-laws, but my husband's reluctant to ask his parents for some reason for any help whatsoever. And so it becomes this like tricky sort of thing when you know what you need. I need a personal Uber driver to take my son places.
How old's your son?
He's 11. Yeah.
Now I just want to go into strictly
I
problem
know,
solving.
right?
I know.
And that
I'm like, well,
is
let's
that
brainstorm
not
this.
another, I feel like,
Yeah.
very maternal characteristic of like when we hear somebody struggling, we want to be able to help solve. Yeah.
You want to save them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But is
Yeah.
that something that we would want done to us? That's what I'm wondering. Like this maternal need to problem solve and to
I
help
want someone to
people in
help
their
me. Yeah,
situations.
I do.
Do we appreciate this? Yeah, when we ask for it, I think.
I
When
don't
we
know.
ask for it.
My
But
experience
no?
was
Not?
different.
I think that's a personal
I-
preference. Yeah,
It could
I
be a
think it's
personal preference.
personal. Some of us want to vent. Some of us want somebody to jump in and save us. Some of us need the problem. And sometimes it just is different based on
Yeah.
what's going on in your life. Like there are some times where I'm like, help me brainstorm
Yeah.
what's going on here.
Mhm.
Help me problem solve. Sometimes I'm like, just let me go and don't try to fix anything.
Yeah.
So I think it depends. But with
It
that
does.
situation, that feels like, I mean, if you zoom out a little bit, I mean, you're what you said is an important barometer, which is like the resentment piece. And I think
Mhm.
that's just kind of like the tricky part of motherhood is so often that we do all of this self-sacrificing because we care so deeply about our relationships and especially our children that we're like, I will give everything to them. But if we get to the point where we're then resentful, like I've been there, I've noticed
I've been
like
there.
I'm like, you guys are getting older. You need to
Yeah.
step it up. Like we're making
Oh,
some
yeah.
changes because
Yeah.
I'm starting to get mad at and it's like the people that we love most, we pour so much into that we become so depleted that then we're resentful toward the people we love most, ultimately harming the relationship. And so we have to kind of check. That's why I think it's important
Yeah.
to check in with ourselves, to manage our needs in all these different areas of our relationship. But if you're getting resentful, then it's time to make a shift in some direction, whether that's like, sorry, honey, your parents are going to help out at least like one practice a week or something, right? Like coming up with some alternatives, or if it's picking a new interest, or if there's something enjoyable for you to do while you're on your drive, or, there's
Well-
all sorts of ways to kind of like brainstorm it. But the resentment
Mhm.
piece is the important one to pay attention to.
So I kind of problem solved through all of this as soon as I realized that resentment was affecting me, and I was mad about it. And what we did is that now my son, his school's only a mile away, but he really doesn't like biking to school. Interesting, huh? Anyways, he he doesn't like it because it's hot. It is hot right now in Arizona. So he is going to now bike to school, even though it's hot. So he saves me from car line in the morning, and in the afternoon, I am going to just find a Starbucks nearby for those mountain biking practices. And my husband, I put him in charge of getting all the gear and everything. So he was out in the 105 garage yesterday changing a tire on the bike. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're good now.
Yeah.
We're good now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's that resentment that really informed it for me. To be like,
Exactly.
okay, there's something that needs to happen here because I can't take this on all by myself.
Exactly. And I get kind of bugged by the messaging, because sometimes the messaging is like very extreme around this topic, which can be like, no, you got to take care of yourself before everybody else.
Mhm.
Like that's kind of a messaging we get, like oxygen mask on first. And I mean, it's sometimes, but like sometimes no, like you're not going to be like, sorry, I'm resentful. No more mountain biking for you.
Yeah.
It's just like, that doesn't really feel good either, really, in terms of how we probably want to feel in our life and in our relationships and specifically in motherhood. And so I think your example is such a perfect demonstration of like, I factored me in, but also like cared for my kid in a way I feel good about. And so I think that's truly at the heart of my book, which is like, how do we factor it in, but still feel good about, ourselves and motherhood?
Yeah. It's a hard balance to like take
Oh,
care of. Like, I mean, it's always shifting, as you say. Like, life you don't fix one problem and everything's smooth sailing from now on. Like, there are constantly things that come up and change along the way. But like, a lot of times when you say, like, we might know our needs sometimes in the moment, but as women, I feel like we've been taught to stuff down our needs to make sure that everyone else is happy. And something impactful that you say, like, because I'm like taking it all in, Morgan. I was like reading your book. So like go get Morgan's book because there is such good stuff in there. When I can't put a nonfiction book down, you know it's good because I have to take those in stages. But you deny people the way to love you completely if they don't know what you need. And that hit me hard. I was like, oh, you're so right on that.
Yeah, I feel like, and I say this to women a lot in their relationships with their partners too. I think men do it. I actually think men do this too. We just don't talk about that as much, but we tend to stuff down our needs because we're told that we need to be easy and don't be dramatic and don't be too much.
Don't be high maintenance.
And don't, all these messages that we receive. Yeah, don't be, oh gosh, high maintenance is like the worst.
Dramatic.
Right? Dramatic. She just like so much. So we really work hard to make our needs pretty small or to position them well and to tiptoe around them or all of these different things. But when we are building resentment, when we're sort of like, this comes out in all sorts of ways. Either you build it up and then you blow up at people in your life, or it just comes out as like snarkiness or you're tense or you're irritable most of the time, which feels horrible to exist that way. But when you keep them to yourselves, you are determining the outcome of what happens in your relationship. If that person does not know how to love you well because you never tell them, then they will never be able to really love you well. And I think we get caught up on, my partner specifically, they should just know how to take care of me.
That's something you hear a lot.
It's not fair either way. I mean, honestly, I think that when that comes up, that's when I'm like, would I feel like I was being given the shaft if somebody was saying that or thinking that about me? Well, she should just know. I would be like, no, that's not fair. I'm not like a mind reader.
Right.
So then, yeah.
Yeah. So we have to tell them. I mean, now if you tell them and they don't ever change anything, we're now in a different category. We're in a different category of, I actually talk about this in my second book. So we'll have to have a conversation then, but I talk about kind of like a continuum of confrontation because it changes as you express yourself. But yeah, you've got to give people the opportunity to show up for you in the ways that you need. If you don't give them the opportunity and then you're mad at them that they didn't do it, that's not actually fair. So
no. It's not. It's something that I'm actually talking about with my daughter now because she has a problem talking with her dad about like when it makes her mad if he does something. And usually it's typical, like it's mansplaining what makes her mad. She's 15. Yeah. And so this last weekend, she was like, oh, dad made me mad. And I'm like, you know what? Do you want my advice on this one? And she's like, if you want to give it, fine. And I'm like, you should just text him like you texted me. Yeah. And she finally took my advice. This has been like 3 years in the making. And she texted him. And what he responded back is, of course, how I knew he would respond, where he's like, I apologize for that. I didn't realize what I was doing. And I'm going to try in the future to do it better. And I could see how you feel that way. But talking to him as well, he's like, she finally told me when something was bothering her. And I'm like, yes, she did. She did indeed.
But this is such a big deal on so many levels. So number one, like you're just teaching her base assertiveness skills and helping her confront through her behavior, like different belief systems about like, oh, they're going to be upset with me. I go through this still with our daughter. I tell a story in the book about her confronting my sister and dealing with some of that sort of belief system stuff. But the other piece is that it's shaping how she's going to expect to be treated someday in a future relationship. And so if she has a father who responds with owning it and taking responsibility for what he did, that's what she's going to expect. And so if she does not get that, it's raising her standards for future relationships. And I think that is like, it's such a gift. You're giving her such a gift by teaching her how to do that.
I love that I had a situation where I kind of knew where I would go, like knowing my husband and knowing my daughter. But say like listeners right now are in a situation where they know the father is not doing that to their kids. I mean, basically it'd be like any adult male in their lives would I guess the thing is, I'm looking at Bree. If you notice, Bree was making really like horrible faces during it. So I'm going to let Bree actually, if you want to come in here.
Yeah. In our case, my daughter has been through years of therapy and is still trying to get over that hump of like talking to her dad. And so I can tell you, I can see it from the other side of not being validated, of constantly being told, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong. You took it the wrong way. You're too sensitive. Like it's rough.
I think that all of these situations become opportunities, because the thing that they don't tell you about motherhood that's so much more challenging, and parenthood in general, that is like how much you're like preparing this person to exist in a very complicated world. And I know that we should know that going into it, but it is like way more nuanced than anybody tells you. And it's like one thing that I take very seriously with both our kids, and especially Effie because she's a bit older, and then Roy and I are doing more of this, is how to use discernment and character analysis in relationships. Like I'm constantly helping them analyze other people. And I tell them, like, you don't want to be judgmental, but you want to use good judgment, right? Because you're picking friends, eventually you'll pick partners. Like you have to know how to use discernment. So when she has these interactions with her dad, if you analyze those, you do like post-game analysis of stuff like that, like you are equipping her for future relationships. You do post-game analysis of her and your current husband. You're like, what's up with that affect? Like, do you get that? Like my kids will be like, so-and-so, they got a flat affect. I can't tell what's going on. I'm like, yes. So
I
like,
love that phrasing.
We talk about it because it's like, if they have an affect that does not respond much, does that mean there's something wrong with you? Or does that mean that's just kind of how they are? And so helping to just connect dots for our kids is so powerful in terms of who they'll relate to and how they'll relate with people as they get older.
It is so powerful. And it's funny, like you mentioned affect, because it, like my kids misinterpret my affect all the time, but they call me on it immediately versus like my husband, they will internalize it. And so I like this post-game analysis and talking about affect. I am so good to take that. And Morgan, I could talk with you so much longer, but I highly encourage everybody to go get Morgan's book. It is Love Your Kids Without Losing Yourself. Like it is so good, and will give you insights into how you react as a parent and also how you react with your kids. And Morgan, what is coming up for you that you're excited about?
My second book is going to be coming out. It's a little bit of a ways off, but it's on the mental load. And I am so excited about this one. And also, my first book feels like my heart's in the world. Like that, I pour stories into it about my relationship with my kids, my relationship with myself. Like that one is so important. I want to tell people also you can listen to it. It's on Audible. It's on Spotify Premium. I think that's easier for a lot of moms. I read it. So if you enjoy my voice, then listen. If you don't, then you can read it.
I love it.
But my second book comes out in April. It's called A Better Share: How Couples Can Tackle the Mental Load for More Fun, Less Resentment, and Great Sex. Because sex is a big part of what gets a lot of times sort of thrown out of the relationship when the mental load is not feeling fair. So I'm excited about that.
You know you're coming back for that.
That is exciting.
Yeah. Well, let's do it.
Yes. Let's do it.
There's a lot to say about that topic.
There is a lot to say. Well, thank you so much, Morgan, for joining us. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So for anybody that watches when we restream this live, which we do it pretty consistently every Tuesday and Thursday when our episodes go live at 12 Pacific.
Around noon.
Yeah, 12 Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. We live stream on all of our social medias. You can see the deer in headlights in my face when Joanne shares this lovely, heartwarming story about her daughter and her husband having this great interaction, her sharing something that upset her, and her husband taking it in and communicating back in a healthy relationship. And then Joanne's like, so what happens when you don't have that? And I'm all like, oh crap, she's talking about me. It's like, this is coming up with our stuff. But yeah.
I could see you go, well, actually, like I was noticing your facial expressions when I was telling the story.
Right, because I was like,
and that's why I brought it up. Yeah.
And
but you were like, you have the scrunched up face when I'm telling the story. And I'm like, oh. Like,
Morgan's reaction too was like, well, this is a great healthy thing. And I'm all like, it would be healthy, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Yes. Well, if you don't know the whole story behind it, we did record a podcast episode about that story about Bree's daughter.
I will attempt to find it while we're talking.
And she'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, I shall.
As you probably could tell from the interview, though, I was a huge fan of Morgan's book. I started reading it the night before this interview, and I got most of the way through, honestly. And it's a hefty book. I just couldn't put it down. But one of the things I do when I'm reading nonfiction, because I realized, especially as a podcast host, like I would read these great books and I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so great. And then I couldn't remember a thing to talk about from it. Like I just remembered it was great and it was wonderful because I'm on to the next thing and I'm reading about the next thing and that's in it. So I have to take notes when I read books, else I just don't remember them. And what I do is usually I have either a paper copy of the book or I have a Kindle, and then I have my phone notes app open at the same time. And when I find something that I want to take a note on, I push the little like microphone thing in the notes app and I'm reading from the book and talking right directly into my notes app, which then does the text to speech right there on the screen.
Oh,
and so I have these very hefty notes on Morgan's book that really didn't take me too long because I just spoke them all as I was reading it. So that's how I take the notes.
Interesting.
That's how I remember things from the books. Because I also like in all of our teaching, like our balance program, like I'm constantly doing new trainings and new sessions and bringing new stuff into Joe with Joe every morning. So I need material. So I have to constantly be reading and learning and upping my game. And that's how I keep it all straight.
That's good to know because the couple of times I've had to cover for you, I'm like, I don't know how Joanne does it. So Joe, see the weather today. Hey, like
I constantly read. I am constantly reading. So that's how I do it. Secret.
Anybody see the latest cat and dog video? Anybody at all?
Yeah.
I digress.
Yeah, that's how it is. But we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please share it with a friend, someone that you know needs this episode in their life, especially like keep your ears out for those complaints that you hear from friends and those complaints you're making of yourself. Because as Morgan said in this episode, whatever you complain about is what you need. So use them to inform what you need and help others also figure out what they need or figure out what others need by what they're complaining about. I thought that was such a great tip. If you enjoyed this episode, also, if you could rate it on iTunes, because you know that helps us with the algorithm. That helps us get to more moms. And it also helps people know Dr. Morgan's work as well.
Yeah.
So until next time, remember, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.